The Orlando Police Department is currently investigating a shooting with multiple victims in downtown Orlando.
Coming up on WFT's First at 5, 2 people are dead and multiple others injured following an overnight shooting. We have footage of the moments right before the shots rang out.
Plus, resources for first-time voters who are new to the U.S., how election officials help immigrants navigate election season.
And the final job report before Election Day, why some believe this could have an impact on how you cast your ballot. First at 5 starts right now.
First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
The newly released video shows the seconds before chaos broke out in downtown Orlando as shots were fired early this morning. 2 victims were killed and 6 other victims are injured. This is First at 5. I'm Alexis Vivanco.
And I'm Nicole Beltran. WUFT's Isabelle Greiner joins us now in the studio with the latest about the victims and the suspect of last night's shooting.
At around 1 a.m., shots were fired in downtown Orlando, leaving 6 injured and 2 dead, according to officials. The 2 victims were 19 and 25. This all happened at Central Boulevard and Orange Avenue. 6 of the surviving victims were shot and 1 was trampled as the crowd ran from the gunfire, but they were all taken to the hospital and are in stable condition. Orlando police say they have 1 suspect in custody.
Shortly after the reported shots fired, a shooting suspect was located and taken into custody at Washington and Orange. He has been identified as 17-year-old Jalen Dwayne Edgar.
Officers say Edgar has been previously arrested for grand theft in 2023. The motive of the shooting is still unknown. OPD said that they received calls from another shooting only 1 block away on Washington Street. The shooting is still under investigation by police as they gather more information. Live in the studio, Isabelle Greiner, WUFT News.
Thank you, Isabelle. We have an update on Operation Candy Sweep. We told you Thursday that Marion County deputies participated in an initiative to keep trick-or-treaters safe from sex predators across Florida. The Florida Department of Corrections says probation officers and law enforcement visited 5,600 homes on Halloween. Sex predators can't give out candy, have decorations, or keep porch lights on. 10 offenders were taken into custody for probation violations.
And taking a live look outside on our DOT cameras on this sunny first day of the month, and it's been a warm day. We're finally starting to see some of that heat after the cold front brought by Hurricane Milton. We're now joined by UF forecaster Ben Gancarz-Davies telling us about how long this heat could last. Ben, what do you got?
Yes, we've been having wonderful warm weather here in Florida, and it's going to last through the end of next week. Currently, we have nice blue skies with just some clouds on the landscape. Current temperatures in those mid to lower 80s, and that's pretty much standard for the rest of our region as well. It might be a little bit cooler if you're looking at the coast, but generally we're going to see that warm trend continue as we look at our hour by hour for the evening. We have those temperatures decreasing as we get into the evening, all the way down to those mid 60s in those early morning hours. As we look at our lows, they're going to be pretty much in those mid 60s. We do have one large outlier down in Daytona where they're expecting the low to be in those mid 50s, but we're going to expect those cool temperatures to disappear by tomorrow as we have that Florida heat return.
Thank you, Ben. In the final lead up to Election Day, Vice President Harris and former President Trump are holding dueling rallies in battleground Wisconsin. Bree Jackson explains how the two are laying out very different visions for the future and urging supporters to vote.
Only 4 days left for voters to decide who will lead the country for the next 4 years.
My first priority, which will be probably the package of bills, is about bringing down the cost of living.
Vice President Harris and former President Trump both campaigning in Wisconsin, hoping to capture the state's 10 electoral college votes. The Harris team also pouncing on this comment Mr. Trump made about former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney.
She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it.
This must be disqualifying.
The Trump campaign responding, stating warmongers like Liz Cheney are very quick to start wars and send other Americans to fight them rather than go into combat themselves, going on to blame the backlash on fake media outrage and calling it an attempt to interfere in the election, echoing the former president's efforts to sow doubt. Meanwhile, intelligence agencies are warning of Russian election interference.
This is all about spewing disinformation designed to undermine trust in our elections and to sow partisan discord. And we cannot allow our foreign adversaries to have a vote in our democracy.
Well over 60 million Americans have early voted, and with time running out, the candidates are pushing to get more supporters to the polls on November 5th. In Washington, Bree Jackson, NBC News.
In less than a week, Florida could join 24 states that allow recreational use of marijuana. The proposal, which appears as Amendment 3 on Tuesday's ballot, would effectively decriminalize possession of up to 3 ounces of marijuana by adults ages 21 and over. Governor Ron DeSantis has traveled the state and appeared on national television, hoping to stop the measure from reaching the 60% voter approval needed for constitutional amendments in Florida.
Do we think having more people use will be better for the state of Florida? Hasn't worked out that way in Colorado, California, I can tell you that.
The company Trulieve, whose medical marijuana sales eclipse its 24 state competitors, has dropped nearly $143 million on the initiative.
Americans want the freedom to be able to make that choice, and candidly, they don't want the government involved in that. And so, I would say for folks to make sure that you have the facts, make sure you understand the realities, again, of what this is and what it isn't, and to educate yourself.
The proposal would give Trulieve and the state's other medical marijuana companies the abilities to start selling cannabis products to anyone in Florida, including tourists ages 21 and older.
Alachua County opened 8 new polling locations this election year. Our Bernardo Montas is live at Santa Fe College's Northwest campus. Bernie, new polling locations like this one have made voting a lot more accessible for voters.
That's right, Nicole. About 150 feet away from me is one of those new polling locations you mentioned. Unfortunately, I couldn't get much closer than this due to Florida statutes, but I did have the opportunity to speak with voters about how having more options for where to vote, among other things, is a welcome change.
Voter Gabby Marugo's first presidential election was nerve-wracking.
The first time I was very nervous because I really didn't know how was it. I remember voting once in Colombia and it's completely different. But yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do?
And voter Amber Neighbor's first presidential election wasn't any easier.
My first time voting in Alachua was a little more hectic. I do remember that it took a really long time, and I actually thought that it was gonna take a really long time today.
But this time,
I'm very pleasantly surprised at how easy it was.
Still, how to vote isn't always clear for first-timers like Marugo once was.
They just give you a paper, you have to read, you have to just know what you're doing.
Which is why Director of Communications for Alachua County Supervisor of Elections Aaron Klein says the county strives to help newer voters understand the process.
We're present at a lot of places where we think people who maybe just moved to the county or new to even the country might be. So we're there giving guidance, doing voter registration.
He says this year voting is faster since ballots are no longer prepackaged, but printed for the voter's ballot style on Election Day.
Early voting ends in 2 days on Sunday. If you're unsure about where you can vote, you can find a full list of polling locations on our website at WUFT.org. Live from Santa Fe College, I'm Bernardo Montas, WUFT News.
The final jobs report before Election Day showed slower than expected growth in October, with just 12,000 jobs being added. Economists had predicted last month's hurricane and labor strikes would impact the numbers, and it did. October's numbers fell well below the expected gain of 112,000 jobs. However, the unemployment rate held steady at 4.1%. Both key economic indicators are coming in just days ahead of a deadlocked presidential election, with the economy at the forefront of the race. WFT and WRUF have you covered on election night. Tune into Cox Channels 5 and 6 for live team coverage of local city and county races, state amendments, and the race for the White House. Our coverage begins when the polls close on November 5th at 7 p.m. And if you can't get to a TV, you can listen in at FM 89.1 FM and 90.1, in addition to WFT.org.
Florida Fish and Wildlife officials highlight manatee conservation during the month of November. Coming up on First at 5, how you can support their mission and rescue efforts of the endangered species.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
November marks the start of Manatee Awareness Month. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation will be celebrating all month by reminding Floridians the importance of animal conservation. As the cooler months approach us, manatees are starting their yearly migration to warmer waters. FWC's rescue stations are spread out across the state and are ready to aid manatees in need. FWC also encourages residents to support research, rescue, and conservation efforts by buying a manatee license plate. It welcomes people to celebrate by sharing photos using the hashtag Manatee Awareness Month.
Marion County health officials want to warn you about a mosquito spread virus that's on the rise. Department of Health officials confirmed the 4th case of West Nile virus in Marion County Thursday. The virus causes flu-like symptoms and is not normally life-threatening. Health officials say if you want to wear repellent, it can help protect you from mosquito bites. They also say you should look out for any standing water outside, as your home could become a breeding ground for the bugs. Looking over in Hernando County, state officials announced they will begin an aerial spraying initiative to combat high mosquito levels after Hurricane Milton. The county received a record-breaking amount of rainfall during Hurricane Milton last month. The treatment starts Saturday and run through Sunday depending on the weather.
A national agency will offer resources to neighbors still recovering from the impacts of Hurricane Helene and Milton. The USDA has more than a dozen programs to help support farmers and agriculture workers recover from storm damage. This includes the Farm Ranch Stress Assistance Network, which matches farmers with trained stress management professionals, and also the Emergency Watershed Program, which provides farmers with resources to help recovery from flooding in their crops. For more information about how to sign up, contact your local USDA center.
And we still have another month left of the hurricane season and another storm possibly brewing south of Cuba this next week. I'll show you the latest forecast coming up.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome back. We've got bright blue skies above our campus with just a couple spotty clouds in the sky. Current temperatures are in those lower 80s, although they are going to be taking a dip quite soon as sunset comes through, turning those skies orange. They're going to make their way through the 70s and all the way down to the mid-60s for those early morning hours. Looking at our 4 a.m. graphic, you can see we do have a little bit of fog that might be affecting our area. Specifically, you see that here by Cross City, and we'll also expect to see that along the I-95 corridor over by Jacksonville. Those temperatures are pretty standard for the lows in our region in those mid-60s, except we do have an outlier down in Daytona where we have that low of 55. Our muggy meter is showing those conditions to be humid, and although this might not seem significant as we're used to muggy or even sweltering conditions here in Florida, with those low temperatures of the evening coming close to where we are for humidity, that's where that fog is going to be coming from. So you want to watch out for that on your morning drive. Looking at the rest of our weekend, we can see Saturday and Sunday we're hitting those lower 80s with our highs, and we're going to have just nice spotty cloud conditions throughout the day before we make those lows, which are going to be following a similar trend. We'll have 80s in our highs and 60s for our lows. Looking at our satellite and radar, there is this large frontal system along the north areas of Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina, but luckily it is going to stall out and the rain from the system will not be making its way into Florida. We're going to expect it to continue to be dry for the rest of the week. Looking at the tropics, we do have a couple areas that we want to pay attention to. This area highlighted in red has a high probability of developing into a tropical depression over the next 7 days. We're expecting that to develop early next week, possibly Monday or Tuesday. We also have this area highlighted in yellow where there is a good amount of rain to the east of it. That is another area that could possibly develop into a tropical depression over the next 7 days. Now, that red area that was highlighted would likely be named Patty were it to develop further, but we do still want to keep in mind that for us here this weekend in North Central Florida, we are expecting those sunny days and nice nights. Over the next week, that's when that storm could be developing, and you want to continue to stay tuned as through the end of November is when our hurricane system finally has its conclusion. I know it's been a while. Looking at our 7-day outlook, take note of the clock that is on Sunday. It is the end of daylight savings time, so we're going to be setting our clocks back 1 hour, sacrificing a little bit of sleep. Our highs are going to be in those mid-80s for the rest of the week, and those lows are going to be in the mid-60s, even making a dip to Thursday at 70 degrees.
Coming up in sports, the Gator football team takes on the Georgia Bulldogs this weekend. This is former Gator Trevor Etienne's first matchup against the Gators after transferring to Georgia this past spring. The details in sports after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to sports. I'm Jordyn Banks. Gator football is traveling to Jacksonville this weekend to take on SEC rival, the Georgia Bulldogs. Coming into this matchup, Georgia is ranked number 2 in the nation with starting wide receiver Eugene Wilson III out. The Gators are hoping to get a win this weekend. Defense will have their hands full as they attempt to slow down former Gator Trevor Etienne. Coach Billy Napier had a few thoughts about the Gators for this upcoming game.
We've challenged our team to be very consistent, be an everyday guy. If we've got a lot of players that are doing it every day, then we've got a chance to be an everyday team. So,
kickoff is set for tomorrow at 3:30. This week, we will be previewing our high school football game of the week. WFT's Sports on Tsemba takes a closer look into the East Side versus Gainesville matchup. This happening tonight at Citizens Field.
Get ready for an exciting matchup under the lights here at Citizens Field tonight as the Gainesville Hurricanes look to whip up a storm against their crosstown rivals, the East Side Rams. With the Hurricanes at 5-4 wrapping up their regular season tonight and the Rams charging in at 6-2, both teams are battling for local pride and bragging rights in this long-standing rivalry.
It's going to be a big game. I know that those guys over there, those kids, they'll be juiced up. They'll be ready to play no matter the record. You know, JHS Eastside is always a great game since I can remember, so it should be a good one.
Eastside held a brutal losing streak over a decade, but they've turned it around in recent years, winning back-to-back in 2022 and 2023, with their last season win being a blowout with a final score of 42-0. Gainesville's offense, led by quarterback Nelson Tambling and their storm chaser running back Devin Johnson, was shown that they can bring the thunder. But the Eastside Rams won't be easy to tame. Quarterback Andrew Cade Sutherland has been a rock for the team's passing game, while Corbin Bird rushed nearly 65 yards per game. With a 5-game winning streak, they hope to keep their Stampede strong.
That feels real good. We got a lot of momentum coming into this game, with it being a big rivalry, and, we've been winning already, so we fired up.
With Gainesville's solid offense averaging 20 points per game and Eastside's tough defense giving up just 113 points all season, we're in for a real showdown. Fans can expect an electric atmosphere here at Citizens Park tonight. Kickoff is at 7:30 on Tsemba, WUFT Sports.
Now let's take a look at the other high school games happening in Alachua County tonight. Some exciting games tonight include St. Joseph Academy taking on Oak Hall at 7:30. Orlando Christian Prep will battle it out versus Hawthorne at 7:30. And finally, Newberry will face Trinity Catholic at 7 o'clock. Let's wrap up with some Gator sports. Florida volleyball is facing Ole Miss this weekend. Kennedy Martin was recently named AVCA Division I Player of the Week. Game time is at 1 o'clock at the Stephen O'Connell Center Sunday afternoon.
That's so exciting to hear. I haven't gone to a volleyball game in so long, so I might have to catch that this weekend, and the football game too, so plenty of orange and blue to look forward to.
You know what? The Gators got their work cut out for them. I can't believe that we have this much Gators. I feel like I'm being spoiled right now. I don't know about you guys, but in general, speaking of being spoiled, Ben, you've done an excellent job spoiling us with the weather, and speaking of orange and blue, tie things all together, nice little bow. Tell me, orange blue skies, or what do we got in store for us?
Yeah, I wish I was able to make it to Jacksonville for this weekend, but it will be nice, sunny, and warm there. Our temperatures are going to be in those mid-80s, and that's going to last through the rest of the week. Remember, on Sunday, it is the end of daylight savings, so make sure to set your clocks back an hour, and we're going to have those nice, sunny skies with some clouds all the way through Friday.
Well, thank you, of course, for joining us. We're back here on Monday for another edition of First at 5.
But your North Central Florida news is always on at WUFT.org and all our social media platforms. Have a great night and weekend.